resources, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection, okay? And that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This is someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. True. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Georgette Truan. I am the co-host for Fight CPS with Miss G, and I also work for the law office of Vincent Davis. I want to discuss a few things with you guys today. Last night I had a call from one of the people that follow my shows. I had the opportunity to speak to her daughter. She arranged it somehow. Her daughter just came out of foster care. She is now 15 years old. Her daughter explained to me that in foster care, in the home she was in, she heard the foster mother tell the social worker that she wanted to adopt the baby because her and her husband cannot have kids. And she told her, I want a baby that, basically to raise not a toddler or whatever, because she wants to be able to say that I'm your mother and he's your father, etc. So the social worker told her, I have a word, that she got the word that there is a teenager that's having a child, soon. So her daughter was telling me, when she was telling me this, I said, how did she get the word? How do you think she got the word that there's a new young lady that's going to have a child and they're planning on taking that baby from her? She said that the social worker always gets information from somebody else, and she hears everything they say. She even said that they told her that in order for her to go back to her mother, she has to say that her mom abused her. Yeah. She said that for the longest time, she didn't want to say it because it wasn't true. She said she was being pressured. And the longer she stayed in the system, the more she believed them. As a child, you believe them. Okay, well, I'm not going to my mom, so they were right. I have to lie in order for me to be with my mom. There's a lot of stuff that she shared with me. She was in CPS custody for about 4 years. Or 5 years, or close to 5 years. And she said stories to me that is just unbelievable. Well, it's believable because I know how CPS is, but it's just, it just, when you hear it, you can't believe it. You're still in disbelief because you're hoping one day this will change, right? When I had the opportunity to speak to her mom, me and her were like talking, me and her mom and her were talking about like maybe until midnight. Like I was about to go to sleep, and then she called me, and the conversation just kept going. There's other stories that I've been hearing lately with grandparents. I know I would rather talk about this in the grandparent show, Relatives Fight CPS tonight. However, I want to bring it up. There's a lot of grandparents who are losing their rights, and their grandkids are put in a home, in an adoptive home, meaning people don't understand this, but foster parents become foster parents to adopt. It's cheaper for them, right? So they're taking that route, and they're telling, and then it's a win-win situation because the county makes money, everybody makes money, and it's cheaper for the foster parent to adopt that way. So what happens is social workers, like for example, if they make an anonymous call, or if they have somebody that related to them or works in the hospital, for example, that's telling them, oh, there's a nurse that's going to have delivery next week. I mean, there's a patient that's going to have delivery next week. And that is the nurse giving that social worker that information. There has to be some type of connection because they know too much. They also make anonymous calls. They make anonymous calls saying that we received this, that you're doing drugs, and et cetera, or you're an abusive person, et cetera, all that. Social workers make those calls. And in the court system, in the juvenile court system, there is no checks and balance. The judges don't question the social workers. No checks and balance at all. So whatever the social worker writes goes. So to me, if you're a judge and you have no checks and balance, then how are you judging this case? So anybody can just write anything and they will deem guilty. The parents will deem guilty, even when they're not guilty. And to me, really, if the parent is not neglecting their children, they're not abusing their children, they're taking them to school, they're feeding them, they're there for them, they're doing the best they can as parents to raise these children. How can they, social workers, act like the jury, the judge, persecutor, God on earth, and they judge them and they're not good enough parents? I really believe that those idiots that they hire, the social workers, they act, how can I say it? They have this type of malicious behavior in them because they have some deep-rooted issues from childhood. I'll give you an example. If a social worker takes over a case, the social worker had issues with her mother. I'm giving you an example. Growing up, maybe the mother beat her, I don't know, something. Then she will be against all women. If the social worker had issues with her father growing up, then she will be against all fathers. That's what I'm seeing so far, what I am realizing, what I have, like the social worker that I spoke with a couple of days ago, the previous social worker that used to work for DCFS in San Diego, she had to quit because they told her, if you don't do what we say, the supervisor, we have to fire you. She didn't want to do what they say. And she didn't want to steal those kids because there was nothing wrong with them. She got a hold of me a couple of days ago, and me and her started talking, and we built this kind of relationship, friendship thing, because I realized that this woman actually tried to do the right thing. And she was only there for 6 months or 7 months, something like that. And she said she couldn't do it. She just couldn't bring herself to do it. And she explained a lot of things that goes on. The social workers sometimes are pressured by their supervisor. The supervisor tells them what to do, what they have to do on the case. For example, if the social worker tells the supervisor there's nothing wrong with the children, then the supervisor orders a removal of the children. Then the supervisor forces the social worker to lie. Well, you can't force somebody to lie, but they pressure them to lie. They pressure. So how do they pressure them? She was explaining to me that previous social worker that I spoke with, she said, by threatening their job. How do they encourage them? That if you do what I tell you to do, you're going to be promoted. So basically, oftentimes, social workers get promoted because they lie. They don't get promoted because they do fabulous work, or they do a great job, or they act fairly and really do the right thing. No, they get promoted for lying. So when she quit her job, the social worker I was telling you about, they put a gag order on her. And the reason she contacted me is because she wants to know if they can really do that. Because she quit. They didn't want her to disclose what really happens in the Department of Child Services, like the deep-rooted truth in the department. So I haven't really discussed it with Mr. Davis yet. However, I'm also curious to find out. That gag order was put on her, against her, because they want to make sure she's silent. And that's all they care about, is her being silent. And then they move on to the next victim. And then they will have social workers who will do what they want them to do. Who will steal children? Who will go to your home unannounced, slam you with allegations that's not even true, and then they say, hey, we received an anonymous call. And people ask me all the time, how can this happen? How can they be allowed this? How can they have all this power? So when I explain to people how they got this power, and they're actually all the money that they get, I mean, if you really think about it, the people pays for all that. The people pays for them. The people pays for the judges to be sitting on a bench, wearing a black robe, having black robe fever, pretending to rule fairly, pretending to do the right thing. To me, I don't even think they're judges, just pretenders. Wearing a black, I can wear a black robe and walk around and say I'm a judge. It seems to me that's what it takes nowadays. That's what it looks like to me. So when I started talking to more and more people daily, I started to realize there's more deeper rooted issues in the Department of DCFS. We already know they hire bad people to handle their job. We already know they hire narcissistic, sociopathic people. We get that. However, the people that they do hire, they also have some deep-rooted issues from childhood. So when they do what they do, they don't feel anything. They don't feel, they have no remorse. They have no feelings at all towards the whole process. And that's why they actually smile at your face. They're disgusting. Seriously, disgusting. So right now I'm taking the information from people, and I am actually trying to process this whole thing with DCFS. Also, the people that protest against the department, she told me that they get really upset. They have meetings in the department, and they start talking, and they start, getting angry about the whole protest thing, and then they laugh among each other, and then they say, you know what, forget it. They're not going to go anywhere. They just talk among each other. She was telling me that they really don't care. They either laugh about it, or they get angry a little bit, and then they talk about where they're going to go have a drink later on. They don't care. But the only thing is about a criminal, they don't want to be exposed. So I asked her about the recording. So I said to her, I said, why doesn't, like, have you ever noticed that the social workers don't want to be recorded? However, in California, workers can be recorded. She said, yes, she knew that. However, the supervisors tell them to make sure you're not being recorded. The supervisor advises them not to be recorded. And they tell them to always tell the parents to shut down the video and that you don't consent to it. However, the day they sign to be social workers, they do consent to it. And she told me, she said they don't want to, the supervisors are very big on that because they don't want to get caught. And that's why they don't want to do, they want to make sure they're not recorded. She also told me oftentimes social workers will go set parents up to feel like at nighttime. Example, they will throw trash around the house, or they will do something around the house that will criminate you. And she said they always check to see if there's cameras first. And they always disguise themselves. She told me so much. The only thing is I can't bring her on my show because she has a gag order on her. But she said so much that was going on. And when I tell people how social workers set them up, they're like, no, some people, that is, no, Mr. Jed, I think it's just, I'm a good parent. Nothing's going to happen to me. I'm going to get my children back. The social worker said, I'm going to get my children back in 1 week. All I have to do is sign a safety plan. Or no, Georgette, they said that they're going to take the children from the abusive ex-husband, and they're going to give me the kids. All I have to do is file a restraining order against them and file for a divorce. I asked them, did your husband beat you? No. Did your husband hit you? Slap you? Call you names? Yelled at you? Pushed you? No. Then why are you filing for a restraining order? The social worker said I have to in order for me to get my kids back. No, you don't have to. Especially if your husband didn't do anything wrong. But all they need is one anonymous call saying, hey, we received a domestic violence call. However, the police was never called. So who made the anonymous call? Neighbors would even say they've never heard them yelling. So who really made the anonymous call? All of a sudden, when that mother had a new baby, she has a 2-year-old and a new baby, a week-old baby. And all of a sudden, social worker got involved. No drugs in her urine. Baby was not born with drugs in the system. The mother doesn't do drugs. But all of a sudden, a week later, after she took the baby from the hospital, she received a domestic violence call. Not from the police, anonymously. Now, anonymously, what? Came from a nurse maybe that reported to a social worker that there's a newborn? I feel like they target people, specific people. Because they're literally leading her on to believe that once she's filed a restraining order and files for a divorce, she's going to get her children back. And that's not the truth. That's why it's very important to hire an attorney during the investigation process of CPS. Because whatever they tell you is not the truth. And you have to understand that there's no checks and balances. No checks and balances in the courtroom. A social worker, whatever the social worker writes down in her report, it goes. It's set in stone. It's like it. The judges listen to it, follow it. So the social workers are actually running the show, right? But they want the public to think the judges are running the show. No. Checks and balance. There is none. How can the judges be running the show? How can the judge's word really be honored when they don't honor any judge decisions? They go against what the judge says and nothing happens to them. How can they have that much power? How can you give a social worker that much power? Sad, right? And they probably barely graduated high school. Barely. And they say they have child development experience. Child development? And what does that mean? You're not a psychiatrist. You're diagnosing people because you had child development training? So you're diagnosing the mother as crazy, unstable, because she cried for her children when you're stealing them? You're diagnosing the father for losing his cool because he's crying over his kids? Or because he doesn't want you to steal his kids? He's stopping you from stealing his kids, and all of a sudden the father is crazy and needs psychiatric help? They diagnose people, parents, when they steal their children. And they actually write this in their report. And the judges believe them. And then send them to a psychiatric evaluation that they recommend that works for the state to evaluate the parents. When any person with common sense will know that you're a parent. If you don't cry when they steal your children, that means you're bankrupt from who you are, from yourself. It is a normal behavior to cry when your kids are being stolen from you. It's a normal behavior for a father to try to protect his family. That's human. That's being alive. That's having feelings, emotion, tears. However, the social workers will diagnose you as crazy. And I've seen that in all the reports. All the reports. Social workers also pressure children to lie. So if they go to you and say your child said, do not believe them. Please do not believe them. Do not. Because like I said, I speak to a lot of kids who outgrew the system, and they told me that they never told the social worker what the social worker wrote down. And when they outgrew the system, of course, the parents showed them what was written in the reports. And they swore up and down they never said that. And they cry. They really cry, like out of control tears, like they can't believe. As child, you're thinking, they're not doing that, but they are. They are doing that. They're manipulating the whole report. And then they break the family apart because the child would say, the one I spoke with that outgrew the system, she said they told her that her mom and dad didn't want to see her. They said that grandparents didn't want to take her in their home, which is not true. That's why they stop you guys from communicating with them. That's why the foster parent stops you guys from communicating with your children effectively. Why? Because they have to be present. They don't want the children to disclose too much information. So there you have it. So there's so much going on that people need to be aware of. So don't ever say, I'm not going to talk to my kids again, or don't ever say your kids hate you. They don't. They're just being told one side of the story, but not the whole truth. All right, everyone. I'm going to call it, I'm going to end the show right now. And I want you guys to watch the show at 1 o'clock and the 7 o'clock p.m. at Relative Fight CPS. That is Pacific Standard Time. God bless you guys. Don't give up, and keep your faith. They're still not above the law, but they want everybody to think they're above the law.